The mid-19th century was a time of immense growth for the United States. It was a period defined by westward expansion, fueled by a potent ideology known as manifest destiny. This belief, embraced by many Americans, held that the United States was destined by God to expand its dominion across the North American continent. Manifest destiny was not merely an abstract ideal, it was a powerful force that influenced political decisions and territorial ambitions. It provided justification for the annexation of Texas, a former Mexican territory that had declared independence in 1836. The U.S. annexation of Texas in 1845 was a pivotal moment that escalated tensions with Mexico. Mexico, having never recognized Texan independence, viewed the annexation as a hostile act. The stage was set for a clash of ambitions and ideologies, a clash that would have far-reaching consequences for both nations. The U.S., driven by manifest destiny, sought to expand its territory and assert its dominance. Mexico, determined to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity, prepared to resist U.S. encroachment. The annexation of Texas was not the only point of contention between the two countries. The United States also laid claim to a vast expanse of territory known as California, then a sparsely populated region under Mexican control. The U.S. government, eager to acquire California's valuable ports and resources, offered to purchase the territory from Mexico. This offer, however, was met with fierce resistance from the Mexican government. Mexico's refusal to cede California further inflamed tensions with the United States, pushing the two nations closer to the brink of war. In the spring of 1846, the simmering tensions finally boiled over. Following a skirmish between U.S. and Mexican troops near the Rio Grande, the United States declared war on Mexico. This declaration marked the beginning of the Mexican-American War, a conflict that would forever alter the course of both nations. The war, driven by U.S. expansionism and fueled by the ideology of manifest destiny, would have profound and lasting consequences for both the victors and the vanquished. The annexation of Texas was not a sudden event, but the culmination of years of maneuvering and political intrigue. Texas, initially part of Mexico, had been settled by a growing number of American immigrants, many of whom chafed under Mexican rule. These settlers, primarily from the southern United States, brought with them their culture, their customs, and their slaves. The institution of slavery, while permitted in Mexico at the time, was increasingly seen as a moral stain by the Mexican government. The clash of cultures and ideologies between the Anglo-Texan settlers and the Mexican government ultimately led to the Texas Revolution in 1835. The Texans, seeking greater autonomy and the preservation of slavery, rebelled against Mexican rule. The revolution culminated in the Battle of San Jacinto in 1836, a decisive victory for the Texans that secured their independence. Mexico, however, refused to recognize the Republic of Texas, viewing it as a rebellious province. The newly formed Republic of Texas, eager for stability and security, sought annexation by the United States. The U.S. government, however, was initially hesitant to annex Texas. The issue of slavery was deeply divisive in the United States, and the annexation of a slaveholding republic threatened to upset the delicate balance of power between the North and the South. Moreover, the annexation of Texas risked provoking a war with Mexico, a prospect that many in the U.S. government sought to avoid. However, the allure of expanding U.S. territory and the growing pressure from pro-annexation factions within the United States proved too strong to resist. In 1845, the U.S. Congress passed a joint resolution annexing Texas. Mexico, outraged by what it perceived as a blatant land grab, broke off diplomatic relations with the United States. The annexation of Texas, a victory for U.S. expansionism, set the two nations on an irreversible collision course. The Mexican-American War, though geographically limited, was a significant conflict that tested the mettle of both armies and produced a number of key battles and figures. The war was fought on multiple fronts, from the deserts of California to the coastal plains of Veracruz. U.S. forces, though often outnumbered, benefited from superior firepower and logistics. Mexican troops, while courageous and tenacious, were hampered by internal divisions and a lack of resources. One of the most pivotal battles of the war was the Battle of Buena Vista, fought in February 1847. U.S. forces, led by General Zachary Taylor, faced a much larger Mexican army commanded by General Antonio López de Santa Anna, a charismatic but ultimately unsuccessful leader. The battle, fought over 2 days, resulted in a costly victory for the United States. The Battle of Buena Vista cemented General Taylor's reputation as a military hero and paved the way for his successful bid for the presidency in 1848. Another key figure in the war was Captain Robert E. Lee, a young engineer officer who would later gain notoriety as the commander of the Confederate Army during the Civil War. Lee distinguished himself in several battles, including the Siege of Veracruz and the Battle of Cerro Gordo. His tactical acumen and strategic brilliance earned him the respect of both his superiors and his men. The Mexican-American War provided valuable experience for Lee and other future Civil War leaders, honing their skills and shaping their understanding of warfare. The war also witnessed the rise of Ulysses S. Grant, another future Civil War general who would later lead the Union Army to victory. Grant, then a junior officer, served under General Zachary Taylor and participated in several engagements, including the Battle of Monterrey. Grant's experiences in the Mexican-American War, though less celebrated than Lee's, proved invaluable in his later military career. The war provided him with practical experience and insights into leadership that would serve him well during the tumultuous years of the Civil War. The Mexican-American War, though a military victory for the United States, came at a steep price for both nations. The war claimed the lives of thousands of soldiers and civilians and left Mexico in a state of political and economic turmoil. For the United States, the victory brought with it a vast new territory, but also ignited a fierce debate over the expansion of slavery that would ultimately lead to the Civil War. In February 1848, after 2 years of bitter fighting, the two nations signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, officially ending the war. The treaty, negotiated under duress, forced Mexico to cede a vast swath of territory to the United States. This territory, known as the Mexican Cession, encompassed present-day California, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. In exchange for this territorial concession, the United States agreed to pay Mexico $15 million and to assume $3.25 million in debts owed by the Mexican government to U.S. citizens. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, while ostensibly a peace agreement, was in reality a punitive measure imposed on a defeated nation. The treaty stripped Mexico of over half its territory, a loss that continues to resonate in Mexican history and identity. The treaty's terms, particularly the forced cession of territory, remain a source of resentment and controversy to this day. Section 5. A Nation Divided, the Mexican Cession and the Escalation toward Civil War. The vast territorial acquisition from the Mexican